Good morning and welcome to the Florida A&M University Board of Trustees meeting. I call the meeting to order. Mrs. Cummings-Martin, would you now please call the roll?
Here we go. Good morning, everyone. Trustee Brown.
Present.
Hey, listen.
Trustee Bryant.
You know it's a big day. You never see that white man on TV. That white man never's on screen.
Trustee Crossman.
You know it's
Present.
a big day. I just want to say
Trustee
that.
Figures.
Present.
Trustee Gibbons.
Present.
Trustee Harper.
Present.
Trustee Lawson.
Present.
Trustee Reed. Trustee Vasquez. Trustee Vasquez. Trustee Washington.
Present.
Trustee White.
Present.
Why does her hairstyle always look like a weeping willow?
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Like nickel.
Thank you. I do want to note for the record that Trustee Gainey did have a conflict and Trustee Perry has an excused absence due to a funeral. So I want to offer condolences to him along with you, Trustee Crossman, for your recent loss in your family.
Don't care.
Our first order of business is to hear comments from the public. Each person recognized for the purpose of public comment shall limit his or her comments to agenda matters currently before the board. The speaker shall give his or her name and shall limit their comments and remarks to 3 minutes. All remarks shall be addressed to the board as a body and not to any member thereof, nor to members of the audience. Ms. Cummings-Martin, did we have anyone who signed up for public comment?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have 9 requests for public comment. We begin with Amy Wheeler.
Ms. Wheeler, you're recognized. Well, let's make sure she's in. And if you could read the next person so that our IT team can get everyone in the queue. In fact, if we can go ahead and get
Ms. Kidd
time in the queue.
Okay.
So
Amy Wheeler is first, followed by Ms. Chiquisa Kidd and Ms. Gabrielle Albert.
Okay.
Ooh, Chiquisa Kidd about to tear it up. She's about to tear it up. Come on, Miss Kidd.
All right, Ms. Wheeler, I don't see her in quite yet. So in the essence of time, the next person.
Ms. Chiquisa Kidd.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes. Good morning. You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair and fellow trustees. I'm Chiquisa Kidd. At your last trustee meeting, Trustee Washington reminded us that FAMU's destiny is tethered to Florida's performance-based funding formula. Yet the contract on the table today offers sky-high pay with virtually zero performance accountability. In the past 20 plus years, I've negotiated several executive comp packages for myself and with employees, and I have never seen anything like this one. The only right answer is to send this agreement back for a complete overhaul. This is about FAMU's future and fiscal responsibility. We can start with the price tag. You spoke of metrics. This contract ignores them. No enrollment or graduation targets, no fundraising minimums, no financial health triggers. As you stated, FAMU is judged on results, but this deal rewards simply showing up. At this critical moment, when the broader FAMU community are united in opposition to this candidate and this process, you're further dividing the community by considering a 5-year package worth roughly $4.7 million plus additional fringe benefits. The state only pays $200,000 a year, and you propose that the foundation supply the remaining 75% of the bill. It's at a moment when the economy is uncertain, our annual giving is down, and every program on campus is competing for scarce funds. The numbers tell a devastating story. $950,000 a year on average is higher than any other public HBCU president in the nation. It also overshoots the search committee's own guidance, which set a ceiling of $750,000 for total comp. What's most outrageous? $750,000 in guaranteed retention bonuses with zero performance requirements. So while Florida demands performance-based funding from universities, you all are considering approval of a performance-free bonus structure. Make it make sense. Before any incentive dollar is released, adopt a quantitative scorecard tied to 3 things: state performance funding metrics, annual fundraising targets, and core financial health indicators. Retention or incentive pay should be earned, not automatic. The opportunity cost of funding this contract is staggering, and quite frankly, it's morally indefensible. The $300,000 annual premium over our prior president could fund a dozen full scholarships, cover the travel costs for the band to attend 3 away games, or provide 3 new FTEs to fundraise for the foundation. Instead, you're asking students and faculty to make do while we guarantee bonuses for unproven leadership. This candidate has never managed a university, taught a college class, or even managed a P&L. Yet this contract guarantees a law school faculty position for someone with 0 teaching experience, which undermines academic standards. Our endowment is not unlimited. Every dollar in excessive compensation is stolen from student success. Every unearned bonus betrays our accountability to our donors, faculty, and staff. I call on you to reject this contract as drafted, reset a base salary to $450, strike the automatic tenure clause, and eliminate guaranteed retention bonuses. Our students deserve better, and FAMU deserves better.
Thank you, Ms. Kidd. Next is Ms. Albert. You're recognized.
Good morning to the board. So my comment is just simply regarding that. We've started this search at FAMU because of improprietary nature in the first place. What has gone on now for the past few months, it's continuing to do that. The Florida trustees have a fiduciary responsibility to FAMU, what's in best interest of the institution. That is due care, informed, prudent decision-making, loyalty, avoiding conflicts of interest, and good faith. At this point, the board has violated all of these principles. Throughout this presidential search, the trustees have continued to act negligent in appointing an unqualified university president. From the lack of transparency and process, when we went from 3 to 4 candidates, having a leak before those candidates were actually announced by the school and in the press, to blatant and unexplainable decision that ignores the published evaluation criteria in the presidential search profile in choosing Johnson, when she not only does not have educational expertise that of the other candidates did, but the comment constantly made by many of the 8 trustees that voted for her was that FAMU needs more financial oversight and improvement on SUS measures. Johnson is a long-term lobbyist and federal affairs professional. She lacks demonstrated financial and P&L experience. She lacks operational experience. She has not led cross-functional teams, nor does she have large-scale experience. At that level and what she's done in the federal affairs, she may have had a team of 50 to 100. She's never had thousands of people relying on her. She has not led multiple organizations. Meanwhile, this was clearly demonstrated by multiple other candidates, including the CFO of Florida's top largest school and top 3 largest in the nation. This is further evidence that the board has acted in lack of due diligence, transparency, disregard of public input. You've heard now, today, you're going to continue to hear, you've heard it, that the FAMU alumni and students are not in alignment with this decision. We are asking and begging of you to do what is right for this university. And finally, the contract above you today is now putting FAM in direct harm because it's purposely negotiated a contract for the proposed president above the highest paid FAMU president ever knowingly being paid, and knowing that the FAMU Foundation does not have the money to pay the salary. The only way to do that would be taking away money from our students, the success of the university, and putting us in further harm's way. With that, I urge you to please relook at your fiduciary responsibilities and the duty of care that you signed up for Florida A&M University. The students, the alumni, we are asking, we don't want to be in the press anymore for this. What we want is to move forward. So please look at this contract, put it back at the $450,000 that we currently have, and let's move forward with what's right in best interest of the university, not politics. Thank you.
Next, we have Lynette Jones, followed by Mr. Zachary Ansley and Stacy Ransom.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. You're now recognized.
Good morning. I'm here to express a deep concern and strong opposition to the decision to increase the salary of the 13th president of the Florida A&M University at this early juncture in her tenure. While leadership should be duly compensated for measurable success, this premature salary boost sends the wrong message, especially at a time when the university is facing financial challenges. It is also disingenuous to suggest that the FAMU Foundation can support this added burden when in fact the foundation's resources are finite and should be dedicated to student success, scholarships, academic innovation, and the long-term sustainability of this institution, not unearned executive compensation. It is particularly troubling that this decision appears to have been made before the president has had adequate time to discriminate performance or deliver tangible outcomes. A 6-month review and assessment of her leadership, strategic execution, and fundraising capability should be the prudent and responsible course of action before any adjustments in the $450,000 salary should be considered. FAMU is rightly celebrated as a national leader in social mobility, a distinction that reflects our mission to uplift students, many from underrepresented and economically disadvantaged backgrounds. However, that notable distinction should not be misapplied to justify unwarranted compensation for senior executives. Social mobility is meant for our students, not for those in power. The university must remain accountable to its mission and its stakeholders, the students, the faculty, the alumni, and the Florida taxpayers, of which I am one. I urge you to reconsider this contract, delay any salary increase, and focus instead on evaluating the new president's progress against clearly defined benchmarks over the next 6 months. Please reject this contract and start over. Thank you for allowing me to make my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. I do want to recognize Trustee Reed has now joined us. We will now move to Mr. Ansley. I see you on the screen. Can you unmute yourself, or can the IT team unmute him, please?
Is that better?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
All right. And thought I could make myself visible too. Well, I can't right now. Look, good morning. In 2024, this board commissioned Siegel, a New York-based human resource consulting firm, to perform a compensation study to determine if FAMU's staff, administrators, and faculty compensation was competitive to that of 40 peer universities in the United States. Now, notice I did not say HBCUs. I said 40 peer universities. So for nearly 30 minutes in the month of September, I listened to the Board of Trustees meeting. And during that 40 minutes, the gentleman from Siegel presented the results. And I thought it was a boring yet informative presentation, as did the board members. They concluded, this corporation, they concluded for administrative salaries, teachers, and staff, that the salary structure that FAMU has is on average, quote, on average, the structure bands are approximately 95% of the average market median, which means that FAMU's salary was comparable to that of 40 other similar universities, peer universities. That compensation study was 27 pages long, and it analyzed faculty, staff, and administrators. And now 27 pages. And yet this board has proposed the compensation package of their controversial selection of president, whose contract is 11 pages of perks, incentives, and performance and non-performance-based metrics. Yet based on her performance bonus on your annual subjective evaluation, the performance bonus is based on an evaluation of excellent or outstanding. There is no metric to determine that. Your proposed 30% or more increase in presidential overall compensation, if passed, would certainly make FAMU's presidential compensation not comparable to 40 other similar universities. Therefore, in your 27-page study would be invalidated by your actions on this one employee. Performance should be based on the performance metrics and not data.
Thank you so much. I do want to recognize that Trustee Vasquez has joined us. Thank you. Ms. Cummings Martin, who's next?
Stacy Ransom.
Ms. Ransom, you're recognized.
Good morning, Board. The definition of a trustee is an individual or person who is given control or powers of administration of a trust with a legal obligation to administer it solely for the purposes specified. This decision that is being made is not for the purposes of those that love FAMU. You guys have a fiduciary responsibility to look after the good of the university and those that love it. It would be a shame and a disservice to your position for you to approve this compensation request in its current form. Not only is it outside of the scope of what's appropriate, according to the study, there is no precedent for awarding an unqualified person this much money with no performance metrics for this astronomical bonus and making promises to her like having a job at the law school at the highest compensation available when she hasn't proven herself and is not even a member of the Florida Bar. There are no college presidents in the HBC world, public nor private, that make this much money. At the National Alumni Association Convention, the Foundation Board asked for more information before making a decision, and this meeting was seemingly rushed before providing them with that information. You cannot bleed blood from a turnip. We don't have the funds for this, and we shouldn't be put in a financial bind, taking away money from more pressing matters for this unqualified, unwanted president that 8 of you decided against our wishes. My ask, break away from this political decision and fulfill your fiduciary responsibility. Do not give this unproven, unworthy figurehead an extended contract at an unprecedented base with maxed out bonuses, not even based on performance, and a forever attachment to the Florida Law School, this opportunity or this contract. You need to go back to the drawing board and do what's best for the university you're supposed to care for. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ransom. We have reached the 15-minute limit for public comments. Ms. Cummings Martin, how many more individuals have signed up for public comment?
Madam Chair, we have 3 requests.
Okay. In accordance with Article 8.2 of the Board Operating Procedures, the board chair may grant additional time. Public comment will be extended for an additional 10 minutes. Who is next, please?
Remy Kent.
And following her?
Following Remy Kent, Viola Osway, and Dr. Carolyn Collins.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kent, you're recognized.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Madam Chair, trustees, thank you for the opportunity to speak. In just a few months, I will send my son to Florida A&M University as a freshman. Like thousands of other parents across the country, I've made the decision to entrust FAMU with my child's future, believing this university will prepare him to lead, to serve, and to thrive. But the proposed presidential contract for Marva Johnson deeply undermines that trust. Let's be honest about what's in the contract. A $650,000 base salary, a 44% increase over the previous president with no prior experience leading a university. Automatic annual raises, even without delivering results. Retention bonuses that are tied to just staying and not performance. All told, this package exceeds $4 million over 5 years, with $450,000 annually coming from the FAMU Foundation. That's nearly $500,000 taken away from scholarships, faculty support, and student services, to subsidize a contract that offers little accountability and no guarantees of success. How do I explain this to my son when we ask students to work hard, earn their achievements, and be held accountable? This contract does the opposite. It prioritizes politics over performance and entitlement over effort. Even more troubling, the board has a rigorous board-approved evaluation system already in place, used just last term. That system, including specific goals for graduation rates, fundraising, pass rates, and more, it was detailed, transparent, and fair. This contract, it replaces all of that with vague references and no clear benchmarks. It's accountability in name only, and that is not good enough for us and our students. So today I'm pleading with you as a mother, an alumna, and as a stakeholder, please do your fiduciary duty. You have a responsibility not to any political figure or appointment, but to this institution, to the students, to the families, to the donors, and the alumni who believe FAMU still stands for excellence. Pause this contract, revisit it with discipline, transparency, and care. Show the nation that FAMU takes governance seriously and that we are not for sale. Fiduciary duty isn't just a legal term, it's a moral obligation. I'm asking you to honor it.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. Next is Ms. Asangwed. Ms. Asangwed. Okay, I don't see her. We will move to Dr. Collins. Dr. Collins, you are recognized. If the team could help her unmute, or if you could, there you go.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you to Chair Hopper, the entire Board of Trustees, and all that are here. I have no idea exactly the approach to take, what I want to say, but I know how I feel. I see misconduct from a professional angle with this compensation packet. There's a way to have a flawless recovery for the Board of Trustees here. And the activities from the beginning of this process have been at best questionable. The words of one of the Board of Governors recently said, "Evil flourish when people do nothing." I changed that and I say, evil will flourish when you do the wrong thing. I'm asking you at this phase of the game to remember that this is not about you. Whatever your interests are, your political interests, whatever career goals that you may have, the first thing to do really is to correct this flawless process that could be flawless by going back and allowing the chair, which have been traditional, to do the contract right, work within the confinements of the funds that are available, and protect the institution for which you guys sit in those seats and have been assigned to protect and take an oath as the Board of Trustees. Many on the FAMU board, if we had a way, could conceivably be charged for some very serious racketeering, a gambling scheme that actually attacks the history of this university, our students, and everything that have been stated before me that is not my interest to be repetitive, because oftentimes, sometimes this board doesn't listen. And most times in this process, the board has not listened to itself, nor even to those individuals that are speaking. It appears that we're listening to someone else who directed our action. So when it comes down to this compensation packet, it's about the same as when it came down to this election. Think with your heads, feel with your heart, join hands, reach in that field, and join forces with the family and make sure that the actions that you are taking is not about you, because not one of you are that important. It's not even about me and the other speakers, but it's about baby rattlers yet unborn that you all each are allowing evil to flourish and you're doing nothing. Now do the right thing.
Thank you, Dr. Collins. That has concluded our time for public comment. Thank you so much to each of you. We will now move to the next agenda item, which is the approval of the May 16th meeting minutes. They were provided to you, trustees, in your meeting materials and posted on the board's website for review. Are there any questions? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by trustee Lawson and seconded by trustee White to approve the May 16th, 2025 board meeting minutes. Is there any unreadiness? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please show by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. The final agenda item is approval of the president-elect contract, Board of Governors Regulation 1.002, Presidential Search and Selection, states that each Board of Trustees shall select its university president, subject to confirmation of the candidate by the Board of Governors, and in accordance with the requirements of Regulation 1.002. Prior to confirmation, the Board of Trustees shall submit a written description of the selection process and criteria, the qualifications of the selected candidate, and a copy of the proposed employment contract to the Board of Governors for its consideration in confirming the candidate. The candidate selected by the Board of Trustees shall be required to appear before the Board of Governors at the meeting where confirmation of the candidate will be considered. Such meeting will be held as soon as practical to ensure a timely transition. The draft president-elect's employment agreement was provided with your meeting materials and also posted on the board website for your review. General Counsel McKnight and Trustee Washington, you are recognized to present the draft agreement.
Good morning, Chair Harper and members of the Board of Trustees. The draft employment agreement for President-elect Marva Johnson is a proposed 5-year contract commencing on August 1st, 2025 and ending on August 1st, 2030. As outlined in Section 2 of the draft agreement, the President's powers and duties include oversight for all the day-to-day operations of the university and the additional obligations set forth in university and Board of Governors regulations, rules, policies, and procedures, and state law. Such powers and duties shall be consistent with those customary for the position of university president and applicable to the president's role as chief executive officer and corporate secretary. The president's initial base salary shall be an amount of $650,000, and she shall be entitled to annual increases of 3% over the previous year's base salary during the 5-year term of her agreement. During her employment as president, President-elect Johnson will reside in the university president's house, and the university will be responsible for the cost of all renovations, repairs, and maintenance of the house. The president-elect shall be eligible to receive a one-time reimbursement of up to $25,000 for her moving and relocation expenses from her current home to the university president's house. A monthly car allowance will be provided as president in an amount of $1,200. In addition, the president shall be eligible for 2 separate annual accruing retention payments. The first accrued retention payment will be an amount of $450,000 if she has continued uninterrupted service of her duties as president through August 1st, 2028. The second accrued retention payment shall be an amount of $300,000 if she has continued interrupted service as president through August 1st, 2030. The draft agreement also reflects that upon the end of service as president, for any reason other than death, disability, or termination for cause, the president-elect will be appointed as a faculty member at the College of Law at the same base salary as the highest paid faculty member. Next slide.
Excuse
As-
me, if there are no slides being shown right now.
VP Seniors. Next slide. Next slide. Thank you.
I'm sorry, would you mind just going back to that other slide so we can have a moment to absorb it? I know you mentioned
you.
it verbally, but just a
Yes,
moment
ma'am.
to absorb the written content would be great for the board. Thank you.
Yes. Chair Harper, and we can keep it on the slide. Chair Harper, you're on mute.
You may continue.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And we're still on the same slide. As to goals and objectives, the president-elect will provide the chair with a list of proposed goals and objectives for the upcoming fiscal year, no later than November 3rd of this year, and before July 1 of each year thereafter. I also draw the board's attention to section 4.2 that says the proposed goals and objectives shall be related to and in furtherance of the university's strategic plan, work plan, and accountability report, and the Board of Governors' strategic plan and performance funding model, and other priorities as established by the board or the Board of Governors. The goals and objectives are to be presented to the board for discussion and approval. The board and the president may agree to revise the goals and objectives as necessary during the fiscal year. The president-elect shall be eligible for an annual performance compensation of $86,000 if the president-elect receives an overall evaluation of exceptional or outstanding evaluation starting with the 2025-2026 fiscal year and payable in the 26-27 fiscal year. The proposed employment agreement also reflects termination of the contract for cause and without cause. In respect to termination for cause, upon a vote of 2/3 of the Board of Trustees, the board may terminate the agreement at any time for just cause pursuant to the university regulations and policies. Next slide. As to termination without cause, upon a vote of 2/3 of the Board of Trustees, the board may terminate this agreement at any time prior to the expiration of the presidential appointment term without cause, provided that the president-elect is given 30 days prior written notice of this issue coming before the board. Upon receiving notice from the board, the president-elect may waive any portion of the entire notice period at her discretion and terminate earlier. To the extent her employment as president is terminated other than for cause, the president-elect shall be entitled to 20 weeks severance pay at her annual base salary in effect at the time of such termination, together with benefits during such period. The president-elect also may terminate the agreement at any time prior to the presidential appointment term without cause, provided that she has given 90 days prior written notice to the board. Upon receiving notice from the president-elect, the chair may waive any portion of the entire notice period at the chair's discretion and terminate earlier. To the extent that her employment as president ends as a result of resignation, death, or disability, such shall be deemed to have occurred for just cause, and the president-elect shall not be entitled to any further employment compensation or benefits from the university except for compensation set forth in section 14.3 and for benefits required to be continued by law. In section 16.1, it should be noted that there is a technical revision that needs to be made to change the term section 13.3 to section 14.3. In addition, there's another technical revision that needs to be made in this proposed employment agreement to section 2.1 to change the reference to operation procedures to operating procedures. Chair Harper, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you.
You're recognized, Trustee Washington.
Thank you. And thank you, Chair Harper and Attorney McKnight. And I want to thank the board, first of all, for entrusting me with this responsibility. I've had some really great conversations with the president-elect over the last couple of weeks, who is excited to embark on her journey with FAMU and is in fact already just starting to have some important conversations. Obviously, Attorney McKnight provided the details of the contract, but I want to provide some additional context. I compare this process to similar to buying a house. I still regret not buying a house back in 2017 when the median home price in Florida was $237. In 2025, that median price is $389,400, a 60% increase. The market has changed. In 2017, we had 4 state university system presidents or state university system institutions that were nationally ranked. Today, Florida has 4 institutions in the top 50 and 6 in the top 100, including FAMU. Florida has been ranked the top higher education system in the country for the last 9 years. Back then, only 3 presidents in the state university system had compensation packages over $1 million. Today, that number has more than doubled. The average system compensation is $933,000. And so while it's nice to talk about times past, I think we have to look forward. The compensation package before you today is competitive yet balanced and reflects both the support of this board and high expectations of accountability for the president-elect. And even with this compensation package, the president-elect is still in the bottom third of the system, I would like for us to note. As Attorney McKnight noted, this contract requires accountability. Sections 4.2 and 4.3 require the president to develop goals by November 3rd. And those I would anticipate would go through the same process that other presidents have gone through, which goes through our governance committee. I also want to note that most of these clauses are aligned, if not replicated from several recent SUS president contracts. And so I know, I'll also add, I know there have been some conversations about the university's ability to pay. I will note in section 8.2 of the employment agreement requires the board to use its best efforts to direct the foundation to provide funds to the university so that it can meet its obligations under the contract. And so although the purpose may become lost at times, pursuant to state law, which is section 1.004.28, the foundation and all university direct support organizations are organized and operated to serve the best interests and mission of the university. And those interests are set by us, the Board of Trustees, in conjunction with the Board of Governors. So next week, when we meet regarding the foundation's 2025-26 operating budget, we should keep this in mind. During the meeting last week, the Foundation Finance Committee meeting indicated the ability of funds to cover this contract, and it approved an operating budget in April, and seemingly predetermined the FAMU president's salary compensation. They made a determination on what they thought was reasonable, and unfortunately, that is not the role of the foundation. To determine the president-elect's salary range. And we did that at our board meeting, our last board meeting. So I do appreciate, obviously, the service of the foundation board members. We've operated in good faith for many years, and I would obviously like to see that continue. In light of the concern that I received a note late last night about a 40% reduction in pledges due in part to events that happened at this institution last year regarding a gift. So I looked actually to see how the foundation adjusted its budget to accommodate the reduction. Imagine my surprise when I found out that not only did the foundation not reduce its budget, but in fact increased the budget by $1 million. It rolled $1 million that were contingency funds from contingency into the operating for this upcoming year to fund not scholarships or the Marching 100, but salaries, foundation support, software maintenance, and renovations to the foundation building. I took a look at the foundation budgets over the last several years, and I do have some questions. For example, somehow the foundation has stopped recording actual expenditures on the budgets that we approve. They have approved over $1 million in foundation board support over the last 6 years, over almost $1 million in software maintenance, and upwards of $500,000 on renovations. So all that is to say, I really want us to continue to be fiscal stewards. I appreciate all of the transparency and accountability and the questions that have been asked around this contract. But the foundation's job is to use its funds to support the best interests and mission of the university. That is determined by this board. And so given where we are and conversations I've had with the Board of Governors, we should direct the foundation to revise its budget if we approve this contract today, to do so by a certain deadline in order for our approval. And then should the foundation decide not to do so, then we have to explore next steps, which unfortunately could include decertification. I'm going to trust that we're not going to get there because the foundation is doing really great work and has continued its commitment to the university. I am also sensitive to the outstanding needs and constraints, but I also believe that if we are to rise as not only the #1 public HBCU, but the #1 HBCU, top 50 university, and an R1 university, then we have to recruit and retain a president that's going to help us get there. And as such, I'm going to move that we approve the President-elect Johnson's employment contract with any necessary revisions as provided in our meeting materials.
I second that motion.
It's been properly moved and seconded. Would you please repeat the motion, Trustee Washington?
I would like to move that we approve President-elect Johnson's employment contract with any necessary revisions, which would be the technical revisions that Attorney McKnight noted as provided in our meeting materials.
Okay. It's been properly moved and seconded to approve President-elect Johnson's employment contract with the necessary revisions, including the technical revisions that Attorney McKnight provided. Attorney McKnight, would you please, for the record, repeat in detail the technical revisions that you mentioned?
Yes, Chair Harper. There's one in section 2.1. There's a reference to the Board of Trustees operations procedure that should reflect operating procedures. The second technical revision is in section 16.1, where it states, it refers to section 13.3. That should be section 14.3.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. We'll now open up the floor for discussion. Trustee Lawson, you're recognized.
Yeah, just added just one comment, be very brief. Thank you, Chair Harper. I too had a concern about the dollar amount and whether or not it would impact the foundation's ability to perform other functions. So I reached out directly to Vice President Neal on Thursday during the foundation, during the NAA meeting in Texas, and I was told that if we went to the upper limit of the the contract or the upper limit of the range that the search committee approved, that it would not impact the foundation's ability to execute on the plans that they had in place. So with that, I became more comfortable with the number. I just want to share that with the balance of the board because I couldn't share it in any other forum other than here.
Are you shitting me?
Thank you for sharing that, Trustee Lawson. Trustee Crossman, you're recognized.
Somebody find that memo.
Thank you, Chair Harper. First off, during our last board meeting, I was ill. I think I mentioned that to you, and I didn't get a chance to comment on a couple things. First, I just want to thank you for your leadership. It's a challenging season, and I appreciate all the hard work that you're doing. And then Trustee Washington, thank you. It's a lot of work. You're a very professional, high quality person, and you're spending a lot of your time on this, and I'm just very grateful for the efforts that you're making. In addition to that, I'm very thankful for Director Kidd. I've listened to her comments the last couple of times, and I always find her comments to be well thought out and professionally presented. I appreciate that. I think I just want to add in this that we definitely are at a fragile season in FAMU's history. I do think some very tough issues are getting worked on and addressed. I'm a person that respects feelings, and there have been a lot of strong feelings, and I think there is a place for that. I'm trying to think through of like, what can we do more and more to make steps that we're moving forward, and trying to make sure that people are listened to, are heard, and how to make sure that they're well engaged. So I heard a lot of the comments that were made concerned about this issue. I have feelings on their side that there's many things that I'm confident about for my own reasons. I think we should move forward. With that said, Trustee Washington, is there anything you can think of that would be helpful at this time based on Director Kidd's comments or others that we can tweak or adjust to help just address any of those concerns in a level of unifying and healing moving forward? That's my
Thank you, white man. Thank you, white man.
Thanks for the thoughtful question, Trustee Crossman. I think that there might have been some misconceptions around the level of merit and accountability that is in fact embedded in the contract as it stands. There are, VP McKnight brought up, I brought up, this is not a contract that is going to pay itself. It is not something that anybody is going to get just for sitting in the seat. Again, we gave the president-elect 90 days approximately to develop a rigorous set of goals and objectives that will be tied to her performance bonus. Those will have to come back through the governance committee after review by the chair, and they will have to be approved by this board. And that is, you've seen the templates that we use for our performance evaluation. It is not a simple or easy process. So that, I think that should give some level of comfort. That might have been just a point of, confusion or misunderstanding. But, we've done all that we can to maintain, a level of competitiveness. I did everything I could to maintain the range that was provided. And, with that being said, I hope that helps people, move forward and think about how we can continue to rally around and provide support for the president-elect.
Chair Harper, may I respond to that? Is that okay?
Sure thing, absolutely.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm pressing. Trustee Washington, thank you for sharing that. That's helpful to me because, again, it's really important to me that people are acknowledged and heard, and when there's legitimate concerns, and again, I think Kidd has done that, that they're responded to. And so what I hear you saying is that it's not like this is happening and the new president doesn't have accountability. There is accountability. And there's a remaining checks and balances system within that accountability. There's levels of that. That's what I hear you say. And if I could add one thing from my perspective, I know it's been out a couple of times about the part about the law school. Many of you know that I served as the chair of the Dean's Advisory Board for several years, and I live in Central Florida. And I have great concerns about agendas to remove the law school from Florida A&M. And I've made very public about that. I feel like I've fought very hard for that. When I saw that, when I thought to myself, if a former president of the university is then in Central Florida and with the law school, that's protecting the law school. And so I know that might be a different perspective from what people have, but as somebody who has knowledge of people trying to remove it, I liked that line in there because I thought it was a level of protecting Florida A&M and protecting the law school. So I know that might be a different perspective, but I just wanted to add that. And I do want to make sure that we're really trying to systematically listen to comments and make sure people are getting all the information they need. So thank you, Chair Harper, and thank you, Trustee Washington.
Thank you, Trustee Comments. Thank you, Trustee Crossman. Trustee Gibbons, you're recognized, and then I'll make a comment and ask a question.
Yeah, Madam Chair. Thank you so much. Don't make it long. I agree with the comments, Senator. I'm glad Trustee Crossman asked those questions because I take Director Kidd's comments pretty seriously. I take her seriously. She usually is very, very on point and on base as it relates to certain things. So I'm glad Trustee Washington responded as well as General Counsel late night. So those comments, thanks.
Thank you. So a couple questions and comments. Thank you, Attorney McKnight, as well as Trustee Washington for the presentation. I just want to show, if I can share my screen. Are you able to see this?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a summary of the 5-year compensation, total compensation by line item. There are aspects of the compensation that are not included, and you can see that in the super and the footers around business travel and expenses, security, housing renovations, repair and maintenance, professional dues, meeting and entertainment. These costs have not yet been determined, and they do not include any cap inside of the contract. However, I want to bring this board's attention to this third column around total compensation. Based on the draft contract that has been negotiated, while it may be more competitive within the SUS, that is one of 3 benchmarks that was included in the compensation study. The other 2 benchmarks were Research 2 universities, of which this is significantly higher than the average of our 2 universities, and definitely significantly higher among HBCUs, which was the 3rd benchmark. Furthermore, this total compensation is not only at the high range that was approved by this board of $750,000 at the high range, all in for total compensation, it significantly exceeds it. So I'd like to understand, Trustee Washington, how to reconcile this.
Thank you, Chair Harper. So this compensation, as it is written here, includes an accrued retention bonus. And so part of what I will say as to how negotiated the contract, I looked at the compensation study that was done by Myers-McRae and was looking at the base, bonus, and annuity, housing, and car. And I should note that President-elect Johnson has decided to forego annuity and will live in the president's house so that we may have some savings on the housing as well. The retention bonus has become more standard in university system contracts. That $150,000 that is included in there does not actually paid out in years 1 or 2 or 3. It is not paid out until year 4. And so that would bring that number, if you took that out, you would bring that number within the $750,000 range for the first year. So we approved not too long ago a coach contract, which is a 5-year guarantee contract, which is required to be payable upon termination for cause or other for the coach, which is upwards of $1 million. The foundation accrued in its salary or in its budget only accounted for a current year salary, did not account for if we were to terminate that contract. This in this case, the only way this would be payable, that $150,000 would be payable before year 4, is due to death or disability of the president.
Thank you for that feedback.
The additional, sorry, there's one more component in that total other, and that is the relocation reimbursement. That is a reimbursement cost charge up to $25,000. And so that also is not a payout. It is a reimbursement for the president-elect moving. And I will say that is also standard across the system.
Thank you for that feedback. So a couple points. This entire compensation package, as noted in 8.2, which I have some questions about as well that I'll get to next, as noted in 8.2, is limited by what the state of Florida, the statutory limit of $200,000. And as noted in 8.2 of the contract, this employment agreement would create a burden for the foundation to supplement the rest of the contract, including but not limited to standard expenses like a $25,000 for relocation. From an accounting perspective, and I did graduate from the FAMU School of Business and Industry, so I go back to Dr. Drummond and Dr. Craig. From an accounting perspective, accrual means that you book it on the P&L and within the balance sheet and the financial statements. You book it at the time it's earned, not when it is paid out. And so it is appropriate to book and earmark a contractual obligation for an accrual. What was mentioned around termination and a termination clause not booked in accrual, it's not typical that that will be booked as an accrual, because that is an action that would be caused by termination. However, when an organization is contractually committing to a certain dollar amount, as is noted in this proposed contract, it is appropriate to book that accrual when it is earned. And certainly based on the way that this contract is written, it's $150,000 per year for a retention bonus and $86,000 per year for a performance bonus. And so it does exceed the limit that this board committed to. I'd also like to understand, Trustee Washington, the rationale of prioritizing retention over performance. The total compensation amount for retention over the 5 years is $750,000. The total for performance is $430,000. So it's 70% higher to reward retention versus performance. And I'm just concerned, about what matters more to this board, occupying a seat or delivering against outcomes for student success. So can you help me understand the rationale of the mix between retention versus performance? And I will say that we still have not reconciled the total compensation amount.
Trustee Harper, it's interesting that you see that as an either or. I see that as a both and. In order for the president to remain for 3 years would require that she has performed over that time. So I see this as a both and. I do not see this board or the state of Florida Board of Governors keeping a president who does not perform. So that is not a concern that I have.
Okay, I do want to also clarify, it's a concern that I have, for the record. I do want to clarify as it relates to the foundation, and notably, there was a letter that was sent by the chair as well as the finance committee chair to this board, and that was forwarded to this board. I want to read from this letter for the record. As you know, the FAMU Foundation Board of Directors met again on May 30th as part of the 10-year tradition of joint and or concurrent meetings with the FAMU National Alumni Association at its annual national convention. As a point of personal privilege, we'd like to thank you for your attendance at the NAA's National Convention and for joining us for key portions of the Foundation's board meetings. Notably, our Finance Committee once again met to take a deeper dive into the Foundation's annual budget and approved by us on April 30th, 2025. As part of those deliberations, we had the benefit of information about a wide array of funding priorities, not imperatives or exigencies, in respect to athletics and the Marching 100, among others. That is the biggest benefit of the joint and or concurrent national convention meetings, and we certainly encourage the full board of trustees to participate next year. Further to the point, while we were not aware of the proposed compensation package for President-elect at that time, the Finance Committee did review for a second time the appropriate contribution level for the next president of the university. Our review centered on affordability, proper stewardship of the Foundation's limited resources, the aforementioned priorities and exigencies, which exceeded well over $1.8 million when combined, the university and Foundation's fundraising metrics to date, which for a number of reasons, which we will not recite, are down approximately 40% from last year, and the general climate for philanthropic and university giving due to numerous macro and microeconomic forces of which we have no or limited control. Said another way, our review centered on maintaining our high standard of rigorous financial review, forecasting, and stewardship of limited resources, noting that at the Board of Trustees' request, we recently exhausted all Foundation's contingency reserves. With this as a backdrop, the Finance Committee determined, and the Foundation Board left undisturbed, a decision to table discussions on increasing the April 30th, 2025 budgetary line item to the university president. As the Board of Trustees is aware, that figure rests at a healthy $388,562, which, when coupled with the university's contribution at the state maximum of $200,000, results in a total compensation package of $588,562. This figure is roughly equivalent to the total compensation package paid to our prior university president, Dr. Larry Robinson, during his 7th year of service to FAMU. In addition, this figure places the university squarely in the middle of the $450,000 to $750,000 total compensation range approved by the FAMU Board of Trustees at the recommendation of the Presidential Search Committee. Please see attached the Florida Foundation Board of Directors proposed presidential compensation table, which formed a part of the Foundation's budgetary deliberations. We further note that only after a friendly amendment at the Presidential Search Committee meeting on May 15, 2025, did the total compensation recommendation ultimately made to the FAMU Board of Trustees stray above that which the Foundation has already determined to be affordable. And the key word I will state is affordable, not necessarily reasonable. I will also note that in another contract of a SUS president-elect, it specifies in the language of the agreement, give me just a moment. It specifies that the execution of an employment agreement consistent with the term sheet will occur after obtaining Board of Trustees approval, the Foundation's approval of its financial obligations, if applicable, and confirmation of the candidate by the Board of Governors. And so we have gotten information from the Foundation leadership around the amount that the budget can accommodate that is determined to be reasonable. And again, that totals $388,562, which if you add the $200,000 is significantly less than what is shown here on the screen.
So that means Lawson lied. Can we say that?
So we will continue to move and we'll come back. Trustee.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I do believe Trustee Lawson has a clarifying point.
Yep, I was going to recognize him next. Trustee Lawson, followed by Trustee Bryant.
Hey, thank you, Chair Harper. And thank you for your question and diligence in the process. And Trustee Washington, thank you. I just want to clarify a point that I made regarding a conversation with VP Neal. I don't want to misquote him. He did express some concerns about the upper limit of the salary range, but I do think that, you know, all of us want to try our best to do what's right for the institution and right by the individuals we're trying to bring in. So I can appreciate all of the back and forth of this discussion. And I can also appreciate the discussions of the public speakers. And I guess I know Dr. Collins probably the best. And the one thing that I would say, and Chair Harper, I think you would agree, you know, as we look at these presidential contracts, we set the president's goals very much in line with the strategic plan and the one-year work plan that typically cascades over to the president around the end of performance funding metrics. So there will be, you know, matter if it's President-elect Johnson or President-elect whomever, very specific goals set around their performance, as we've done with President Robinson, President Mangum, President Robinson's interim, and even all the way back to President Ammon. So I do just want to reassure that even though they weren't spelled out here, there will be very finite performance goals that the president will have to attain. And those are typically negotiated between the president, the chair, and then presented back to the full board for agreement.
Thank you, Trustee Lawson, excuse me, and you're certainly correct. And for those who are listening and watching, there are two documents that I would definitely direct you to. One is the boldly striking 22 to 27 strategic plan, as well as the 2025 FAMU accountability plan, which was approved just last month on April 24th. And that includes Board of Governors approved goals through 27-28. So those are guardrails that will certainly influence president's goals. Thank you, Trustee Lawson. If you could put your hand down, unless you have another question.
No, sorry, Trustee Harper.
Thank you. Trustee Bryant, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you. I'm glad to see everyone today. I kind of just wanted to go back to that whole point about the annual performance review versus her retention payment. So I know you had stated, Trustee Washington, that it's a both and, but just based off of what I'm seeing with, it seems as though like the $150,000 is basically the payment just because of her being present. And I know we already covered this point, but also when it comes down to the $86,000 for the performance compensation, but it only pays out that amount for the exceptional or outstanding, which is basically the best caliber of performance possible. And with that only being less than half of what her retention payment would be, I feel like that sets a clear standard, or it sets a clear indicator that her presence is more important than her performance. And I just wanted to understand the rationale behind why is that coming out to be that way? Because it's just not really adding up, I'll say. And I know you guys are talking about it's lining up with the strategic plan, but if the strategic plan is already in place, then what is the point of the president coming back and presenting a whole nother performance metric to basically prove or make this exceptional standing even worth it?
Trustee Washington?
I'm not sure about the second part of that question, but to the first part of my question, thank you, Trustee Bryant. She will be eligible for a certain amount of compensation each year upon her outstanding performance. And on the third year of exceptional outstanding performance, she will get a retention bonus. I do not see anybody on this board being okay with mediocre performance.
Okay. All right. Next, Trustee Brown.
Hello. Can you hear me on that side?
We can hear you.
I hate this.
Hello. Good morning. I wanted to provide one or two comments. There were a few things that were mentioned in a relationship to faculty. But I do have a main concern that I think that there are some things that are in our ballpark that we can help to clarify and to provide some information on. Even some of the comments today related to educational experience. I've said this and I would like to say it again. I would really like for the university to consider just making sure that we're giving the Rattlers the best information regarding the experience that our candidate has. And a piece of it to me is related to this for salary. If we keep saying even today that incoming President Johnson does not have educational experience, I think the Rattler Nation does need to understand the structure of the Florida Board of Education. And the Florida Board of Education oversees the colleges. And so colleges, even such as Pasco Hernando, where our current interim president, President Beard, is from, in the college system, President Beard and the colleagues from the other colleges reported to the board. And that board was chaired by Marva Johnson. So I'm still a little puzzled at a constant conversation of saying someone who is sitting in a position where they oversee K through 12, they oversee online schools, they oversee the juvenile schools, and they oversee the entire Florida college system. We keep saying that a person of whom the performance-based philosophy began to be implemented, that there's no experience. My other comments is back to Siegel, because even some of the public comments today, we're talking about the Siegel study, and why does the first study for the faculty and staff say one thing, and then all of a sudden we have these huge numbers in this study? And I wanted to clarify. You had a lot of things that were missing. FAMU DRS was completely excluded from the study. The faculty and staff were also left out from that study, and we did receive an apology from the provost and the COO. We also had smaller schools. Many schools had enrollment of less than 4,000. There were also schools that had no doctoral programs or minimal doctoral programs. You had no data from professional accreditation schools. So if any of the alumni are wondering why the numbers are so different, you have a lot of professional schools, pharmacy, law, physical therapy, allied health, nursing, and they have benchmark salaries based on their accreditation. We didn't use any of that information. The study left out the majority of our SUS schools. And so I wanted to just kind of clarify that my position for faculty in this role, it's a good thing that I think that we're looking at a better pay structure, because according to the National Education Association, which I've said again and again and again, we are factually the lowest paid faculty in the state in the SUS system. And so I think that it's a great thing to start a trend of doing better pay, but I wanted to make sure for the record that when we're talking about why this study looks different, the study that was used for faculty and staff was not done in the same fashion. We left out the majority of bigger schools, bigger programs, and anyone who actually was going to make a substantial mark. And even for FAMU DRS, if you leave out your K through 12 school, and if you don't compare them, we won't have comparison points. So I do support the contract, but I support it from the perspective that it would be a good trend for DRS and for our faculty and staff on all of our campuses to be paid like their peers, and additionally for us to have a compensation study that's fair. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Brown. Trustee Reed, you're recognized. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Chair Harper. Maybe a couple of points from me. I just wanted to get a couple of clarifying points. One is related to the proposed retention bonus. Is it one bonus of 150,000, or is there two bonuses? One at year 3 and one at year 5?
Trustee Washington.
It is 2, one at year 3 and one at year 5.
Okay, so that's 300,000 in retention.
No, it's $150,000 per year, paid after year 3 at a total of $450,000, and paid after year 5 at a total of $300,000, for a total retention bonus over a 5-year contract of $750,000.
Okay, so essentially it's taking the current base salary and then giving an increase of 150,000 on top of the current base salary. Just maybe from my perspective, board, I think one thing going back to the discussion around fiduciary responsibility, I think we really need to take a step back and ask ourselves a couple of different questions here. One for me is our previous president, we had a contract in place based on his performance and the work that he achieved on behalf of the university. If we had the ability to pay him more, I think we would have. And we spent a lot of time talking about the ability to be able to reward for performance, which is the reason why we have a very transparent process for how we measure the performance of the president. That, I would say is very rigorous. And Chair Lawson, you had a lot to do with putting that in place on behalf of this board, which fundamentally holds joint accountability for overall performance. And that's ultimately allowed us to get to where we are today. And that was at a salary range that, from our perspective, was affordable and competitive from a compensation perspective. I find it highly difficult to approve a contract that significantly exceeds essentially what we paid our previous president that had significant experience as a sitting president and as a faculty member in a higher ed institution, and the experience subsequent to that as well. I understand as a board, the decision was made for us to move forward with a compensation package that could essentially have a $750,000 amount to it. That amount to me is odd, understanding where we were coming from, but this board approved that. And to now have a contract that financially exceeds that from our last board meeting, I find extremely odd for us. I mean, we've already put in place a requirement and a cap for the organization in terms of what we were going to strive to pay. And now to essentially go beyond that, I find odd for us. And I do believe we should look at affordability. And I understand you have to pay for talent. And I think we all want to make sure we get paid for the work that we do, but we also have to prove performance first. And when you don't have a history of proving performance in the role in which you're going into, then ultimately you have to basically set a baseline of performance and expectation that then drives the rewards associated with that. So I find it difficult to approve a contract that significantly exceeds the 750,000 cap that we put in place. And in addition to that, has a retention bonus built in before we've actually had the opportunity to actually witness performance that should be driving us against the overall performance goals that we've set for the university. So maybe someone can give me some insight into what is the justification for us to think it is okay to have a compensation package that is this significant. It exceeds what we've already approved, what we've already approved. And when you take a look at the benchmark, as was articulated, 3 different benchmarks, this is significantly above 2 of those benchmarks, gets you somewhere in the range of 1 of those benchmarks, but it seems extremely rich. And quite frankly, the question is how are we going to afford it as a university?
Thank you, Trustee Reed. Trustee Washington, you're recognized.
I don't have a whole lot of commentary outside of what I've already said around, the current context, the current benchmarks. And again, while I understand the, concern around the accrual of the $150K this year, it will not be payable this year. And without the $150,000 retention bonus, which will not be paid out until potentially 28, 29, it actually comes in at $689,400.
She don't want to answer no questions.
So below the 750.
Is there any reason we're proposing a retention?
The retention bonus exists in the last 4 university president contracts, usually at a substantially higher rate, honestly. The next lowest one is $200,000 a year, which accrued after 3 and 5 years. There are several others that are upwards of 20% of the base salary accrued a year, payable after 3 or 5 years. So it is common practice.
Does that address your questions, Trustee Reed?
Yes, half of it. The other question becomes affordability. So just going back to the affordability of the contract from a university perspective. And it sounds like there was a meeting at the foundation regarding this, given their point of view in the context of affordability, especially with the incremental expenses that we are now asking the foundation to take on behalf of the university. The fact that there is a $200,000 cap that can come from our funds, but which means these dollars now have to come from donors and alumni. I mean, it just gives me pause that that we don't have a clear pathway to affordability for something that, you know, to me, that seems to be quite significant in terms of a financial expectation.
Trustee Reed, I can respond to that. And I honestly have had several questions with the administration over the last year or so about how we, as the board, view our giving and our receipts. I've had several conversations trying to figure out sort of how we determine what the unrestricted gifts that we get and where they show up on our university balance sheets. I've asked those questions over the last year, honestly. What we have in front of us is a proposed, or I have in front of me is the proposed foundation budget for this year. And I will tell you, as I mentioned in my comments, that the budget last year had about $1,200,000 in contingency in it, which would appear to be one-time funds. Those funds for this year, $1 million of that was rolled into their operating budget. And it was not used for student scholarships. It was not used for the Marching 100. $415,000 of it is going to university advancement, salaries, and benefits. I have a $50,000 increase in software maintenance to the tune of $200,000 and budgeted for software maintenance. I see $150,000 in renovations to the 625 East Tennessee Street building. I have a lot of questions about how we are accommodating and how we are budgeting the foundation resources as well, because in that we had $400,000 that was in the budget last year for scholarships that is not in the budget this year. So I agree with you. I think there are some additional, we are being doged and coached and all of the things. And I think that this is an area that we, as a board, should look more deeply into.
Thank you for that reply. I do appreciate the engagement, and I believe that it's prudent to have explanations of the foundation's budget from those who are closest to the budget and understand the nuances and the details of it. So I just want to state that for the record, that's really important to understand the nuances. And on this call, we do not have anyone who has that expertise to weigh in on. Trustee White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Harper. I would like to call the question.
Trustee Vasquez's hand is raised. Calling the question requires a 2/3 vote. Do you want to skip the ability for another trustee to ask a question or a comment?
I would never want to do that, Chair Harper. Trustee Vasquez, you have the floor.
Trustee Vasquez, you're recognized. Thank you for accommodating Trustee White. This is important, and we want to make sure all trustees' voices are heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Harper. I appreciate it. I just wanted to share some perspective I have when looking at this. I guess when looking at compensation, for the university president, there's clearly ranges. You know, in Florida, it can range from a total compensation of $500,000 to over $1.6 million. There are many factors that go into compensation, such as enrollment, university classification, et cetera. And the information we were provided, there are 2 Florida universities, such as New College and Florida Polytech, that have much lower enrollment, but they pay much higher than our current president, and more or on par with the current contract that we have in front of us. This current contract, from what I was looking at, would make our university's president the eighth highest paid president in Florida State University system out of 12. You know, our university, it has a unique distinction in that it's the only public HBCU in the Florida university system. And I think, you know, that's something that the university wears with honor, and we want to make sure that carries on for a very long time, forever. So, you know, when I look at other comparable information that was provided, looking at HBCUs, I think there's one distinction that's left out, and that's that those HBCUs are not in the #1 ranked university system in the country. They're not in Florida. So I think that's an important distinction when I was looking at the information. The other thing I looked at was accountability, and that's already been brought up. So when I look at accountability, I found 2 specific sections, 4.2 and 4.3, that are in the contract that I see that are provisions that are put in place for accountability, so that we can make sure that this standard that we have is being upheld. And then just one more quick point. Dr. Brown kind of alluded to this when he was speaking. And I think this can also be a moment that can set a very good precedent for our faculty and the staff for potentially higher income or wages in the future by using these comparisons and benchmarks. So to me, this isn't necessarily about one specific individual, but more the university as a whole. So this is about faculty and staff having the benchmark set for themselves for potentially increases in the future. So I just wanted to share
Boy, go
that.
fix a
Thank you,
McDonald's
Chair
ice cream
Harper.
machine. Sit your ass down.
Thank you, Trustee Vasquez. Trustee Crossman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Harper. For many reasons, I get my head around and I'm in favor of this. But I have a major issue that I'm really at the breaking point with, and that the deeper issue we got to get our arms around, and we got to get a plan around, is trust. There's a huge number of the alumni that do not trust this board. I think there's some of the board members themselves don't trust each other. There's trust issues between us and potentially the BOG and alumni in the BOG. And, you know, we're having issues that should really be easier and move faster that are going a lot slower. And the problem is trust. And, you know, I love raising money and promoting FAMU. And by the way, no matter what happens to me, I'm going to keep giving and raising money and promoting FAMU. I'm going to always keep doing it because I believe in it. I'm just really pushing this hard. If we do not get a plan together very quickly to address the issue of trust, it is going to be a remarkably painful process unnecessarily that I don't want to participate in anymore. I'm done with it. We have got to address the real issue, and that real issue is trust. And I don't mean that trust in like a ethical kind of way. I mean, it's like people being heard and listened to. And I'm just near the end if we cannot get a plan very soon. And I'm happy to be part of a team that works on that and get together key constituents, but that has got to get addressed.
Thank you, Trustee Crossman. Trustee Brown, you're recognized.
Hello, I'll try to be brief with my comments. I want to express to the board a sense of disappointment in a good way. I think it's a good thing that we're spending this amount of time on this contract. I think it's good that we're running through it with a fine-tooth comb. There's a lot of questions, a lot of comments. My only issue is that we asked for something better for faculty and staff. I counted the trustees over a series of public records of months. And at least 5 trustees said, including the chair, that we needed SUS comparison data for faculty and staff. And so I'm appalled and I'm frustrated that it's good that we're spending this time here, But when it came to the faculty and staff, we were told as a board that we could not get SUS data. And the faculty trustee had to go to the Siegel company and say, we were told you don't have the data. Can you please give us the data? And the answer was yes. So I'm extremely frustrated that we spent more than an hour and a half on this call, deep diving letter by letter, and we have advisors who are being paid $40,000 less than their SUS peers. We have faculty members who are making $50,000 less than their peers. You have faculty and graduate students that don't have the stuff that they need. And so I agree and I appreciate the comments from Trustee Vasquez and others that this is a call for more. And while I appreciate the compassion and the voice and all of the warm and even not so warm things that alumni are saying, not a single alumni has asked in any of the emails I've received about the needs of the faculty and staff of the university.
You didn't even
We don't
care.
have the money to run what we need for faculty and staff. We don't. And I appreciate the conversation, but the next time that we have a compensation study for faculty and staff, I hope we can at least spend 30 minutes to get real comparisons, to get real data, and to talk about real numbers of the resources that are needed to run this institution. It is not fair. I support it, but this is not fair. And I have to be clear on the record in saying this is not fair for the study that was done for the faculty and staff. Thank you.
Oh, you didn't even take in the faculty and
Thank
staff's
you, Trustee
opinion.
Brown. And certainly there have been a number of conversations that this board has had around the compensation that has extended certainly for a good period of time. I don't see any further hands. I'm going to make a couple comments and then let's go ahead and bring this in for a landing if there are no additional comments by trustees. I do want to say, Trustee Crossman, I certainly hear your concern as it relates to trust. And I couldn't agree with you more. You know, the decisions of this board to, you know, follow through, we have a mandate to follow through with the BOG regulation, all of the BOG regulations, including 1.001, the powers and duties of trustees, and 1.002, the presidential search and selection process. And that process includes gaining stakeholder feedback, which was done at the beginning of the search process by the Presidential Search Committee and concluded with a series of robust on-campus visits. And I have to say that I'm disappointed that this board ignored the outcry of thousands of people. And trust is earned. It's not given. And so we are at a point where the board voted 8-4 for the president-elect. We're at a point of reviewing the contract, and there are a few things that I want to share for the record. Number one is as it relates to the excuse me. There's been robust conversations as it relates to the mix of retention versus performance. And I would prefer that they were swapped. Reward outcomes, maybe at $150,000 a year, and maybe retention. That would have been my preference. Had I negotiated this contract as chairs normally do in circumstances where a chair is elected to represent a body, this would have been more of a pay for performance contract and not one that certainly exceeds not only history, but the present as it relates to the compensation study that we have reviewed. I want to remind this board of our fiduciary duties and the fact that we're public officers. From the trustee handbook, it states that we have 3 duties: the duty of care, to pursue the best, to pursue the interests of the institution with reasonable diligence and prudence; the duty of loyalty, to place the interests of the institution ahead of your own interest; and the duty of obedience, to ensure the institution complies with the applicable laws and regulations, acts in accordance with its own policies, and carries out its mission appropriately. I will stress that in the comments that have been made with Trustee Washington, as well as the duty of loyalty and others, there are multiple interests. Interests are plural. And certainly the president of the university is one of several interests. We do have a fiduciary oversight of this university that is even emphasized with accrediting bodies, SACs, and the Higher Learning Commission as an example, which states balancing the short term and the long term, providing oversight, not control. And as is stated in the contract, at the end of 2.1, subject to the direction, control, and instructions of the board, which seems like quite an overreach for a governing board. I do have concerns not only with moving forward with a motion to approve this contract that exceeds the threshold that was previously approved by this board, but I'd like to understand, what does 8.2 truly mean? 8.2 reads, while serving as president during the term of this agreement and contingent upon the availability of funds, the board shall not be responsible for, but authorizes the compensation arrangement and shall use its best efforts to cause the foundation to contribute to the university the portion of all payments provided in this agreement that exceed the limits set forth in Florida Statute Section 1012.975. What does use its best efforts to cause the foundation truly mean? Is that within the authority of the Board of Trustees? This board certainly has the authority to review and approve the budget, as an example. But does this board have the legal ability to cause a different body that has its own regulations, distinct bylaws, distinct processes and procedures? Does this board have the authority to cause any other body to take specific action? And what does best efforts mean? That is ambiguous at best. And so I have grave concerns about the language in the contract. I have concerns about the burden, the financial burden that this places on the university and the university's inability to fund this sweetheart deal of sweetheart deals.
Ooh, not the sweetheart deal.
I see one more hand. Trustee Bryant.
Thank you. I feel like you said a lot, Chair Harper, that kind of echoed what I'm about to say, but I wanted to go back to Trustee Crossman's initial point about ensuring that all the stakeholders are basically being heard and that we reestablish these lines of communication and transparency, because this is only my second board meeting, but ever since before I got here, and while I have been here and present in the room, it seems as though like we are the representative body to ensure that, we still keep up that standard for FAMU. And we have all these individuals, whether it be the foundation, whether it be faculty, whether it be staff, that have been speaking and that have been talking and that have been begging to be heard for months now when it comes to the way that we vote, especially if we consider ourselves to be to be serving in the best interest of these different stakeholders. So it kind of confuses me when individuals speak out saying that, we're speaking on behalf of this person or this person, and you vote in opposition of what has already been vocalized. So my concern, Trustee Crossman, if there is an opportunity for us to reestablish these pipelines and reshape what it means to actually speak on behalf of these stakeholders, I would love to work with you to make sure that that happens. But beyond that, I echo all the sentiments Chair Harper had already vocalized.
Thank you. There's one other thing I just failed to mention. SUS BOG Regulation 9.0073A7 states that expenditures from any source of funds by any university shall not exceed the funds available. I do want to remind you of what I shared earlier, that in another contract for an SUS president-elect, that contract is contingent upon the foundation's approval of its financial obligations. And so I believe that university took the proper steps in ensuring that, number one, the foundation had the appropriate information in order to make a decision. And that, number two, the contract was not just contingent upon funds being available, but pre-confirmed that the foundation provided that approval. I will also note, finally, that in historical contracts, and I'm deeply familiar with President Robinson's contract, as well as Interim President Beard's contract, which I negotiated, that those contracts, particularly Interim President Beard, stated that funds could be provided by the FAMU Foundation or other sources of funds. And so that is not included, that language, other sources of funds, that is not included in this current contract language. And so that could have been another pathway to fund this $4.7 million contract. Trustee Reed, you're recognized.
Just maybe one comment, Trustee Harper, Chair Harper, just to get clarification. So according to your previous comment, if we don't have confirmation that we have source of funds to actually approve this contract, then are we too early in terms of having this meeting to make a decision on the amount that we're willing to pay if we don't understand how we're going to pay it?
That's a great question, and that's my concern. General Attorney McKnight, would you like to respond to that?
Thank you, Chair Harper and Trustee Reed. Based upon what has been shared and what I do understand is that the issue is not necessarily whether there is availability of funds with the FAMU Foundation. Matter of fact, in reviewing what was shared from the foundation yesterday, and I'm looking at page 2 or 3 of that document dated June 5th, 2025. And it's in the paragraph above the last paragraph, and there's a sentence here that says, specifically, compensating the next president at the higher recommended range would necessitate the reallocation of resources currently earmarked for university department areas. And to me, that reflects, once again, that there appears to be funds available with the FAMU Foundation, and that those funds simply need to be reallocated, consistent with what this board determines to be the best interest of the university.
Thank you. So while it may appear that the funds are available based on the sentence you read in that letter, we don't have confirmation during this board meeting that that is true or not true. And so I do believe that it's too early to take up this measure without having a clear line of sight into what truly is available and what is not available.
And I think if Crossman is talking about trust, he needs to vote against approving the contract.
I do want to get to a vote. Trustee White, is your hand still raised or is that a new raise?
No, I was just asking. I think we have a motion on the floor. So
There is a motion.
Yes, if we can get to that.
Okay, I don't see any other hands raised or any other unreadiness. So at this point, it has been moved and seconded. It's been moved and seconded to approve the President-elect Johnson's contract with any necessary technical revisions. And specifically, the technical revisions that have been mentioned were in 16.1, changing that language from the referral of 13.3 to change it to 14.3, and in section 2.1, changing the language operations procedures to operating procedures. There was another misspelling that I shared with the Office of General Counsel yesterday. So seeing no additional hands raised, I will ask Ms. Cummings, I'm sorry, Unreadiness Trustee Reed, go ahead.
Yes, so sorry, just one other item. If the requirement is that you have to be able to ensure you have source of funds, I would make a counter motion that the amount should be in alignment with the current revised budget that the foundation has put in place, that essentially ensures that we have the adequate source of funds for whatever contract we put in place.
So there is an amendment to revise the motion. Can you repeat that one more time, please?
Would be to revise the motion to align with the funds that we've already approved based on what's currently in the budget for the foundation, which has also been approved by us.
And do you have that amount on hand?
I do not, Chair Harper. It's the amount that you called out when you were giving us your information. It was 588 or something was the total, the 388 number, I think.
Okay, 388, 562. So is there a second to that motion? I'll second. So it's been moved and seconded to amend.
Excuse me, Trustee Harper, just from a parliamentary procedure, I think that is a friendly amendment to the existing motion. So that would have to be accepted by the original maker of that motion, if I'm not mistaken, but I'll defer to Attorney General Counsel.
Friendly amendments are a courtesy. We can offer that courtesy, and if the courtesy is not accepted, it can go to the entire board for a motion.
I would say it's an unfriendly amendment.
Do you accept the amendment?
No.
Okay,
You won't.
so it's been moved and seconded to revise the motion to align with the funds that are approved by the FAMU Foundation, which is $388,562. Is there any unreadiness to the amendment?
Sorry, point of clarity, Trustee Harper. Are we voting on the original?
No,
proposal?
we're voting on the amendment.
On the amendment from Trustee Reed?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Seeing no additional unreadiness, Ms. Cummings Martin, would you please call the roll?
Madam Chair, Trustee Brown. Trustee Brown,
Now he want to act like he ain't there.
Trustee Bryant,
That's crazy.
Nay.
Trustee Crossman,
Nay.
Trustee Figures,
Nay.
Trustee Gibbons,
No.
Trustee Gibbons, Trustee Harper,
Okay.
Trustee Lawson,
Nay.
No.
I'm sorry, Trustee Gibbons,
Can you hear me? No. No. Can you
That
hear
was
me?
no for Brown also, for Ms. Cummings. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Trustee Reed,
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez,
No.
Trustee Washington,
No.
Trustee White.
Nope.
Ten nays, one yay, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So the motion fails. We'll go back to the original motion that's on the floor. So is there any additional unreadiness on that motion?
Can you restate the motion, please?
Sure. The motion is to approve the President-elect Johnson's contract with any necessary revisions, specifically the technical revisions. Trustee Reed, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Harper. Just one clarification for me is that in the contract that talks about the way that we potentially get to these funds is via a reallocation of dollars. My concern is that the decision around how we reallocate those dollars, does it have a negative impact on programs that we've already established relative to students, other programs that we're currently funding? We have restricted dollars, some unrestricted dollars. So the decision process to decide how we fund this from the foundation, I'm still unclear on.
There is not clarity in this meeting on the how. So there will not be an answer during this meeting on the how.
So are we prepared as a board to take money from students without having some clarity as to how we're going to fund this?
It's my understanding that we will, the foundation will be required to amend their budget to accommodate this expense. And I should note that in the current budget that they just approved, there is actually no funding for athletic scholarships included in that budget. But I don't know if that's, again, to Chair Harper's point, I don't know the background behind that, if that's something they're considering. But we would not determine how they reallocate those funds, but we would require them to reallocate the funds.
Required is quite a strong word. Is that what's meant by best efforts to cause the foundation to fund this? Trustee Washington?
It is my understanding that if this board makes this decision, the foundation has a ministerial duty to accommodate the decision.
Interesting. Seeing no additional unreadiness, the motion on the floor, and for the record, I don't believe that this board, based on operating procedures, based on BOG regulation, or based on state statute, has the authority to require any direct service organization to take any action, including but not limited to the budget. Ms. Cummings Martin, would you please call the roll?
Madam Chair, Trustee Brown,
In favor of the motion.
Trustee Bryant,
Nay.
Trustee Crossman,
Yes, in favor.
This nigga be
Trustee
lying.
Figures,
Yes.
And figures. Oh my God.
Trustee Gibbons,
I'm done.
Yes, in favor.
I'm done. This
Trustee Harper,
Nay.
Trustee Lawson,
Yes.
Trustee Reed,
Nay.
Trustee Vasquez,
Yes.
Trustee Washington,
Yes.
Trustee White.
Yes.
We have 8 yeas and 3 nays, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The motion passes. I do want to ask General Counsel McKnight, can you please weigh in on the question that was asked around the authority of the Board of Trustees as it relates to the Foundation Board and its requirements?
Yes, Madam Chair. Pursuant to the agreement as reflected, the board shall use its best efforts to cause the foundation to contribute to the university, the portions of all payments provided for in the agreement. And in doing so, pursuant to state law, the Board of Governors regulation and board's policy concerning direct support organizations, including the FAMU Foundation, those governing provisions states that Each DSO, including the foundation, shall be organized and operated to serve the best interests of the university. And as a matter for the board, next week, the budget of DSOs, including the foundation, will be presented. And I believe that this board has already made a determination that in financing this obligation pursuant to the proposed contract, that it would serve in the best interest and mission of the university. And so the board would have an opportunity to exercise its best efforts by making sure that the foundation, their proposed budget includes any financial obligations provided for in the employment agreement for President-elect Johnson.
Thank you for reiterating what is part of the employment agreement. Can you please provide guidance based on state statute?
Well, I will provide what is in the Board of Governors regulation, which says that 9.011, operating budgets to support organizations shall be prepared at least annually and approved by the organization's governing body and the University Board of Trustees. With that in mind, the proposed budget for the FAMU Foundation will be presented next week as scheduled and consistent with serving the best interests of the university and being committed to the mission of the university. The board can require the foundation to, by denying its suggested budget and requiring them to make changes to that budget consistent with the obligations contained in President-elect Johnson's contract.
Okay, I want to make sure I heard you. By denying the suggested budget, the board can require, the Board of Trustees can require the FAMU Board of Directors, the foundation, to make changes to the budget. Is that what I heard you say?
In exercising its best interest, the board can inform the FAMU Foundation that it needs to amend its budget such that funds will be reallocated to fund this contract. And and as stated by Trustee Washington, within a certain time frame.
Okay. Trustee Crossman, I see your hand. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to reiterate what I said earlier, that, look, we have got
Shut
to
your
put a
bitch
plan
ass up.
together, addressing these issues, getting all the key constituents together, making sure people are heard, and getting these things addressed. That I strongly, I don't know how to be louder about that. And I appreciate Trustee Bryant and the comments on that. Anybody that would want to work together on this, I'm just strongly stating that if we do not address this, things are going to get more and more and more challenging. I do think there's a path that we can make things work, but we have got to get the key constituents at the table. They've got to be heard. And then we need proactive steps to make sure all these issues are getting addressed.
Thank you. So at this point, the discussion has been had, the motion has been made and passed. I do still have concerns as it relates to any requirements, and we'll follow up with you, Attorney McKnight, with further questions that I have on that. We do have a board meeting scheduled next week, as has already been discussed, in which the DSO and Intercollegiate Athletics Committee will provide updates, including a budget, including bylaws, proposals that follow the guidance of and feedback from this board, along with the what's on the agenda is to approve 6 foundation directors. I do think that there are issues with what has been shared as it relates to requirements, from notwithstanding what's in the draft employment agreement. I do believe, based on my research, but I'm not an attorney, but I do believe that there are still issues with that best efforts in causing the foundation to take any action and the language about requirements. And I'd like to understand more deeply if that is consistent with a more thorough review of not only BOG regulations, Board of Trustee policies, Florida state statutes, but also accrediting standards of multiple accrediting bodies. And I believe that there may be some concerns. I will follow up with you, Attorney McKnight, on that. If there are no additional items to come before this board, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I gotta say this. I think, like, if anybody knows Chair Harper personally, everybody needs to put, every FAMU alum needs to put her on your Christmas list. Because I need you to understand, if she was not the chair, I want to say this again. If she was not the chair of this committee, how fast this up, like, what I love that Chair Harper is doing is she is literally breaking it down in layman's terms for everybody to understand what they are doing and what they are not doing and what they are not doing correctly and what they're overlooking and what they've pushed through and what they've passed through and what they're trying to sneak through, right? She is making it as plain as day. So she's trying, in the military, we'll say KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. And she is breaking it down to the minute detail to understand and to let everybody know in FAMU and every HBCU land what they are trying to do to her beloved institution and to you all's beloved institution, right? So I need you guys to really think about that. If she was not the chair of this board, how outrageous and how quickly these meetings would be over, because anybody else, the bitch ass Jamal Brown, the bitch ass Michael White, if it the Weeping Willow hair, Nicole Figures never shows her face, right? She just in the background being a puppet. She never shows her face. You got the fat boys, Gibbons and Lawson. Like, if any of these Bamas was the chair, this would be over in 10 minutes. Oh, we want to. Because all White wants to do is approve the motion. I think there's a question on the floor. Can we get an approval for that? I think there's a question on the floor. That's all. All they want to do is move it through, pass it along, right? But what Chair Harper is doing for all the people out there in the world to see is, listen, look at how they're trying to manipulate this. Look how Michael White set it up that Washington doesn't know her head from her ass. She's just putting shit into a contract. She doesn't know how to break it down. She doesn't know how to put the right performances in. She doesn't understand that retention should not be more than performance. Like, it's just simple things like that she's just showing the public of, like, look and see what they're doing, right? So to me, it's just crazy that you can see this up close and personal. And then listen, I tell y'all, Mr. Kim was like my dad. Me and Mr. Kim talk all the time. And I'm not the cracker type person. Like, I don't do all that. But because there's sometimes, like, me and Mr. Kim will be having conversations about the, you know what I'm saying? And he's like, Scotty, sometimes they just gonna do what they gonna do. And you see it with Crossman. Like, he tries to play. This is the funny thing. Black people ain't dumb, right? Like, you can play the, you can play the reading rainbow. Oh, everybody's welcome. Everybody. Oh, let's listen to everybody. And then on the flip side, you go against everybody that you're talking about building a trust in. How does that work? All you do is get your white ass up on there. You never show your face. You never say 2 cents. And then when you finally say something, you're saying, we really need to trust our constituents. We really need, it's all about getting the trust. There is no trust from the alums and the people of FAMU and all this and all that. And we really need to. And in the building of trust, and Chair Harper made it very clear, over the thousands and thousands of alums and faculty who do not agree with this, over the letter she read from the NAA talking about, bro, we ain't got the funds to go up to this million and all the 750 that you're asking. With all that information that was given to yo Mayo ass, you still vote yes on the. And listen, I'm going to keep it a buck with you. If I was Crossman, I would have voted no because you still knew the shit was going to pass. If I'm going to play the role, I'm going to say no, nay, right? In my nay, I'm going to say because we haven't got the FAMU trust, but my nay doesn't matter because we got enough votes to pass the shit anyway. And then you got Mr. Low Tide. I just showed up here this morning. Mr. Rico Suave ain't fixed the McDonald's ice cream machine. Why are you even talking, sir? Why are you even talking? I feel like black people at Thanksgiving. Why are you at the adult table, sir? Go sit your ass at the kid table. Go sit your ass at the kid table. Why are you even talking to me right now? That's why your ass kept getting skipped. That's why your ass kept getting Uno reverse and draw forward and draw 2 on. Because why are you talking? Oh, off the information that I received, FAMU is this and FAMU is that. And yeah, because I'm doing my research right now. And the information that I was provided for, probably by Nicole, mumbling Nicole, probably by, I ain't never seen her figures, probably by that bitch ass Jamal Brown. Probably about bald head, short ass, Napoleon Dynamite ass Michael White. Like, what are we talking about right now, man? I'm usually like super objective, but this shit is like, and it be your own people. Like, I would understand it if it was like, stay with me. I'm sorry. Just stay with me for a little bit. I'm sorry. And you can call, anybody can call in. The call lines are open. You see the call line number in the bottom. Anybody can call in. The call lines are open, right? But let me just say this before I get up out of here, right? My issue is this. Back in the 60s and the 50s and the 40s, they would have black people come up to they would have black people accused of crimes. And then they would say a jury of your peers, and the peers would be all white men and women talking about their crime. They'll get do a court case in a day, and then they ass getting hung, going to jail or whatever, right? This is my issue. It is your own people. It is literally your own people of your judge, jury, and executioner. That is what kills me when I'm watching this. I'm like, God damn, like it is nothing but niggas on this thing, and all y'all niggas is cooning. All you niggas is cooning. Like, and then what makes my chest itch is Michael White to me is the biggest sellout I've ever seen in my life. You are a 3rd generation FAMU rattler. You talked about it. Your mama graduated. Your aunt graduated. And if I was his mama, there's no way he comes home for Thanksgiving. There's no way you allow that nigga in your house for Thanksgiving. If I'm his aunt, there's no way you should be able to call me aunt after this situation. I would be embarrassed if I was related to Michael White and he was on the board of trustees and he's a FAMU grad. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You see what Chair Harper has done as a graduate of FAMU and her battling and standing up and doing all these type of things or whatever and just going toe-to-toe with the institution, going toe-to-toe with all DeSantis flunkies and cronies, just going toe-to-toe. But Michael White, like, bro, are you kidding me? I'm sorry. JB, coming to you.
Good. How you doing, sir?
What's up?
All right. So I just saw the hearing and whatnot. And folks, I'm going to say this again, and I've said this before. What you saw was politics plain and simple. Now, Scott, you talk about it being your own people. In theory, I agree with you, but hopefully people see now that quote unquote be your own people, that it stopped being about this years ago. Now, I will say this, there was a takeaway I think I saw from this. They're talking about getting money from the foundation to pay these things, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I asked a question in the chat earlier about is FAMU able to, some of their people give to specify where their money goes? Like, do you have to give the foundation directly, or can you actually sprinkle that money into other departments where the foundation can't touch it? Because if that's the case, that's where your giving and your money goes. That's where those things go. If your money is earmarked in those different departments, so they have to spend it on those things, like, say for example, if I was to write $1,000 check today to give the FAMU's band or music department, can that money from there be used to pay for this salary? If that answer is no, then everyone who is able to give to FAMU need to give those monies directly to those departments, so that way the foundation cannot touch those monies to pay this president. The board actually said a lot today, if people were listening to it. So we definitely need to pay attention to that. And then also, and so I keep beating this horse, giving has to go up, because the board member said, I think two of the board members said, they basically said that alumni have no power because their giving is not very high. You increase their giving in these different departments.
Let me say this, and I'm sorry to cut you off, JB, and this is why I have to disagree with you, right? Because Florida, the reason I'm disagreeing with you, Florida got big money, got big boosters. That shit didn't. All the alums wanted the Bama from Michigan. All the alums, all the boosters wanted him, right? And and even articles came out saying, do you not think that alums and boosters do not know what's best for their institution? But the Board of Governors still shot it down. So again, it does not matter how much money you have. If Florida does not want you to have it, you're not going to have it because of all the checks and balances. Because the Board of Trustees voted for it, it gets to the Board of Governors, they shoot it down. So if you got a double dutch to get through all the hoops just to get it approved, it doesn't matter how much money you give. It doesn't matter how much influence you have. If it doesn't want to go down in Florida, it's not going down. And that is why I keep saying, and I you can't use Bethune because you guys have your board problems, but at some point in time, HBCUs have to start looking at going private because of what is going on. If you're not voting in your state, then you got to move it. You got to move yourself into a situation where the state cannot affect you. And that's where it's at right now. But, to each his own. But last point, JB, before I let you go.
Sure. Now, I did speak to some of the UF alums yesterday when this vote went down. And of course, what I was told, they're very, very quiet on this. I'm not exactly sure what that means. I'm going down to visit some of my friends down there this upcoming weekend, so hopefully I get some more direct answers on that. But yeah, but so far, a lot of the UF alums I've talked to, they're very, very quiet about this, probably planning their next move. I'm not sure if that's a fight that DeSantis wants, because he tried that fight with Disney, came back to bite him. I'm not sure if he wants to pick the fight with the University of Florida, but that's another conversation another time. Anyway, let me go.
Appreciate it, man. 8016 coming to you. I see you, Mr. Campbell. 8016 coming to you. You live. 80.
Oh, yes, this is Clinton Bird here in Tallahassee, Florida. I'm a 71 alum. My 4 daughters, 40 members of our family went to FAMU. And the gentleman's question before is, yes, you can give restricted gifts, but even with the restricted gifts, the foundation will get a portion of that for administrative and other, but it won't nearly amount to the amount that they're looking for. And I think people should start giving restricted gifts. They should start designating organizations they want to give to and make it very difficult for the foundation. The foundation board is more independent than the Board of Trustees. So the foundation board should reject this and then force the Board of Trustees to do decertification or whatever they want to do, but to put them on record as being solely responsible for this action. And this guy, when he starts talking about, they started talking about new college and all of those things. Those are political appointments. Those people are being put in place strictly to do what the governor wants them to do, and that's why those salaries in Florida are high. FAMU has done extremely well without them. Let me just get to my point.
Yes, sir.
I own the largest collection of African American art, history, memorabilia in the world. It's called the Montague Collection. I've been working with FAMU. We've done, I believe, 6 exhibits at FAMU, and we're getting ready to start. I have no interest in doing anything that's going to make this lady look good at all. I'll choose other HBCUs to work with. And I think we should take our money, not only the foundation money, but I think there should be a move to not go to homecoming. The average family spends $1,500 probably for homecoming. We could raise $8, $9, $10 million, give it to the foundation on a restricted basis, and then give the rest of the money to the football players as NIL. Balance the athletic department's budget and give that money to those guys that have been playing for us all these years. Nobody from FAMU was drafted this year. And so with that being in mind, our guys deserve some type of compensation. So balance the athletic department budget, stay home. Go, you know, those that are here, we can go outside and cheer from outside and help the vendors out, but I wouldn't attend the game. I would give that money to the athletic department on a restricted basis and give the balance of that money to our football players as NIL funds, and just to show these people that we're serious about this, not supporting what this woman is doing. And the classics and other things the same way. Our boys can win a game without us being in the stands. If the band's there, they can win, but they know that they're gonna get the money. I think they'll play even harder. If they know that the money that will be going to Orlando and all of these places, we're gonna balance the athletic budget and pay these guys because they can get NIL money now. You know, each one of our ball players, if we did that, man, they could get $25,000 each. That'll be an incentive for them to come to FAMU for the next year or two. And that's what I wanted to say. These people, these guys are sellout. Lawson, Al Lawson's brother, Al Lawson's a politician. He hasn't shown up. We've got Lamb, Brian Lamb, is the chair of the Board of Governors. He had something to say about the University of Florida's president being removed, but he has not spoken at all about the president of Florida A&M University. He comes from Havana, just 20 miles up the road.
Yes, sir.
And that's just these house Negroes need to get their act together. They've been bought and sold. I mean, we don't have a chance. Thanks for listening.
No, thank you for the call, sir. 7096, and then I'm gonna go 6004. 7096 coming to you. Hey, call you live.
Hey, Scotty, this is TMB in the chat, man. I just want to touch on 2 things and just let everybody know. The first thing is the 1890 Land Grant Scholarship Program. That is about a $30 million program that's funded by the USDA. It's not fully funded or awarded. So that's why my call is to privatize that program. It's a $30 million program. It's largely STEM-related fields and agriculture-related fields. We generally do not get to reap the benefits of the rewards of that program. So that's for all 19 land grant institutions throughout the U.S. Of course, Bluefield is one of them, but you know, Bluefield is majority white. We'll just leave that where it is. Second thing is, in all of these land grant states, if we're not getting 70% voter turnout for local and state elections, stop talking, stop listening, or just don't comment, because at this point, all of these schools are state run. If we're not showing up to vote, if we're not running our candidates, if we're not showing up to the council meetings, the board meetings, the state houses, that's where the control is. That's who's pulling strings in this board. The state of Florida and Tallahassee, that governor's mansion and all those people in the legislature are pulling strings on this board and that whole meeting that we just saw. So that's the 2 points I want to make. I'll let everybody just, you know, hang up and listen, but thanks for letting me call in.
Oh, anytime. Thank you for the call, sir. Listen, and I know JB says it all the time. He's in politics, and listen, I'm not gonna lie to you. I ain't no civics major or anything like that. But at the end of the day, man, Florida is just different, bro. I can't even say nothing else. 6004 coming to you.
Yes. Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You're live.
Yes, thank you so much for providing the forum and for sharing your perspective on what's going on at FAMU. I am a FAMU alum. I'm a life member of the National Alumni Association, and I'm very concerned. And I'll just say that elections have consequences, like the brother just said. And we need to be thinking forward. Now, it was very interesting on the call today that there was all this comparison of salaries of different schools, but they weren't comparing qualifications of presidential candidates. They weren't comparing Miss Marva Johnson's qualifications to other presidents at other schools. So that was very interesting. And then I think we need to be very strategic about we voting, yes, but we have to be very strategic about where we spend our money. And that means that when I do come, yes, I will be at homecoming. And yes, I would really, if I lived in Florida, I'd be galvanizing people to protest every one of those McDonald's. We've had problems with McDonald's, the corporation, since the 70s because they showed more love to Florida State than they did to FAMU. But this man, he needs to feel the pinch. We need to make sure the McDonald's that we go to are not owned by that board member. We need to do the research on, and people are doing it already, and doing the research on all those board members who voted for her and seeing if they work for law firms, need to pull their retainers, everything. They need to feel the pain that their vote has consequences and repercussions, and we need to call them out because they're comfortable sitting there. So we need to let them feel some pain. Whoever they work for, whatever they do, we need to hit them hard there.
Agreed. 100% agreed. Thank you so much. Listen, and I know that sounds tedious, but at the end of the day, you got to look at what Black people did to Target. Right, there was a commission put out by the Reverend down in Atlanta. Boycott Target. It caught on. It got some fire. Target started losing a massive amounts of revenue and funding. Right, from Black people. And again, it's a coerced effort to. You got to have a commitment, right? Like, and this is funny. Me and my wife was just talking about this, and Mr. Kim, I'm coming to you. I promise. Me and my wife was just talking about this, right? And because there's a new strike of people saying like go to Dollar General, and my thing is I think we as a people, and I was telling my wife, I was like, it's funny. She was like, I don't think people are going to do it, and I was like, well, there's too much liberties, right? Like in the 60s and 50s and 70s, like there weren't that many liberties. If somebody said we weren't doing this, there wasn't something else you could go to. Right? You couldn't go to, if Target wasn't selling to you, it wasn't a Walmart. You had to go it's like, this is the only place we have, and we're going to make them change to accommodate us. Right? But now there's so much liberties. There's so much freedom that I don't really have to. I don't really need to. You know what? It's not bothering me. It's not my issue. It doesn't affect me. It's a lot of that. Instead of saying, this is against my people. This attack against my people is an attack against me. And there's not a lot of that in this day and age, right? Until you go through something, right? Until you go through it, then it's your problem. But then when you're not going through it, it's not your problem. You see what I'm saying? And again, we all make jokes about the presidents and things like that. But again, if Jackson State was going through the same issue and I was able to show it, I would do that for Jackson. I would do it for Southern, because at the end of the day, these institutions are pillars to Black men and women that have come through these and made huge changes in society. You're talking about millionaires and businessmen and mothers and fathers and uncles and aunties and grandmas who have changed their lineage by going through these institutions. Even if their grandchildren or their sons or daughters didn't go to FAMU, right? FAMU supplied the foundation for that. They can teach their kids, hey, you should go to college, or you should be this, or me going to FAMU has put me in this position, or it elevated our families to be here or be there, right? And that's what all HBCUs around the world today. But it's sad when you see some of the stuff that's going on. Mr. Campbell, coming to you.
Okay, man. Let me.
Yeah, I'll let you cook.
I'm gonna try to get through it.
Yeah, I'll let you cook.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'll let you cook.
Okay.
Go ahead. Good.
First of all, let me start here. I'm going to say again, no matter what people say about you, good, bad, and different, I appreciate you having this on YouTube, because I want to be clear for folks to understand something. Even though they have that Zoom, understand that Zoom is not recorded. So for a lot of our rattlers and people that care about HBCUs, the only way they're going to get to see this, because a lot of people at work, they're going to have to see this on this YouTube. Because it's gone now. You can't find the meeting. Remember, you couldn't find the meeting last time, right? It's not anywhere. You are the person of record that is showing this. So I want to tell you I appreciate that. The second thing is, man, you made such a point about what you and your wife were talking about. And see, man, this comes a time where we got to start, we want to erase history. But this is time for us to learn from history. Because see, now it's time to come with a sacrifice. And I'm going to make a couple of points. Because the false flag about this 6% of alumni giving, okay, I'll give them that. But do they realize that 6% directly, indirectly raised $25 million for FAMU 2 years ago? So don't act like we're not giving money.
Yeah.
So that's the problem that the lot is. It's only 6%. So either you directly do it, or with most people, and I got a lot of classmates in this chat, and they know it. They work at corporate jobs. They're the vice president. They're the president. They're the director. And you know what they do? They put their name on the line and get millions of dollars from their corporation for FAMU. So that's exactly the same thing as giving. Because if I'm putting my name on the line for Wells Fargo to give us $5 million, baby, you're going to put my name on that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to hear that this alumni, that's a false flag. The second thing is my boy Brown, her qualifications. Did you see how he maneuvered that? He didn't talk about her qualifications directly being the president of what she had done, higher ed, fundraising. She said she sat on the board. Now, Scotty, you know what I did? I wanted to see something because I know people that are on boards. Now, you know Apple, Scott. You got an Apple phone, right?
Yeah.
Apple is a $1 trillion company, right? $1 trillion.
Yeah.
There's a woman on their board named Monica Lozano. You know what Monica Lozano did? She ran the largest Spanish newspaper in the U.S. Okay, she's on Apple's board. But I'm gonna ask you a question. Do you think she could run Apple computers?
Nope.
Exactly. So don't play in my face. Just because you sit on a board does not make you qualified to run a university. There are people put on boards all the time to give balance, to give inflection, to give advice. You got your little board, right?
Yeah.
But we ain't doing our script.
Yeah.
So don't play with me to try to say that is some big deal when that board does not deal with finance. That board does not deal with recruitment. That board does not deal with fundraising. That board does not deal with directly daily metrics to run a university with hundreds of employees. So you're not going to run that on us. Then you go, and this is the question I got. Nicole Washington gets up there, and I'm going to be very respectful because it takes everything, because I have daughters, I have a mother. So I'm going to be respectful to that woman. She said in the best interest of the university. So I'm going to ask a question to her. So if they came up there and said in the best interest of the university, pay her $15 million, would they expect the foundation to do that? See, don't play in my face. Your number is arbitrary. Your number has no metric to it. Then you try to make this lie. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to use Mrs. MAGA MARVA Johnson's. You know, she was talking about AI. So I asked AI, is buying a house the same as getting a job? You know what AI told me, Scotty?
What did they tell you?
No, buying a house and getting a job are not the same. Even AI know there's some bullshit. Okay? Because for you to sit back and say, a couple of years ago, a house was X, and now a house is this. Well, if that was the case, everybody that is listening to this chat should have got 60% raises. If that was the way business worked, right?
Yeah.
We should all have gotten 60% because the housing market went up. We all should get money too. What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? So do not tell me. So the way you do it is exactly what Chairman Harper said. You go look at your other peers, you look at what the market bears, and you pay market value. You don't pay something and you use something about a house that has nothing to do with any economic metric on paying a president. But then you want to sit there and look in our face and play us like that. These are educated people that you're trying to talk to. And then let me address Crossman. And you're right. I come from the old school and I deal with the old school. So I'm not going to say that because I'm on the phone and I'm going to say be respectful. But listen here, white man. do not come to us and say, oh, I just don't feel comfortable and this doesn't feel right. We got all this people and upset and angry. We need to work together. Did you work together when we already knew what the vote was on Monday and y'all voted on Friday? Did you want to work together when people were getting and sending emails? They had the public talking. Did you take any of that account when you and that 8 voted? Absolutely not. So now what it is, people on your ass. Now you know we're here to play. We're going to play this game with you. We're going to boycott your businesses. We're going to call you out, and we're going to make it feel uncomfortable. See, now the white man, everybody ain't patting him on the back. Oh, so good, you're on Family Board. Now people in his ass, he's getting emails. And he's not getting no nasty, he's getting business emails calling his ass out. See, he ain't used to that heat. So my thing is, man, the whole thing with this, and then you're going to tell the foundation, and oh, they haven't submitted the budget for the athletics, and I haven't seen this, how that. Well, you know what? I'm just going to tell you a secret. The AD just got here. He's putting a budget together now. So you will see something. So don't stop playing us for stupid. I think this is what aggravates all of us, is that you are sitting up here in our face thinking that we're stupid, that these slaves can't read, that we're not doing this and we're not doing it, and that this woman, out of all the people, is the most qualified, and that you're going to pay her double than Larry Robinson. And this is the thing, comparing apples to apples. Larry Robinson, I think they said he's been there 7 years.
Yeah.
Okay? At FAMU. 6 of the years, FAMU's been #1. So if that was the case, to her point, why weren't they paying Larry $1 million?
Facts.
I'm going to store it back on her. So you found that Larry wasn't worth no more than $588,000, and he had FAMU #1 for 6 straight years, record fundraising, record research dollars, on the way to R1, but he wasn't worth $1 million? And this woman is. So I'm going to say this to FAMU people. Donate to FAMU, but just like our class has our own fund, it's restricted. They can't do anything with their money. We tell them what to do. So whatever, if you part of the band, football, pharmacy, whatever, everybody has a DSO that represents them. Donate your money directly to them. Do not just send it to FAMU. If it's your class, send it there, because then you got a chip in the game. Because I'll tell you what, if all this money starts going to restricted dollars, just like FAMU 88, we got a chip in the game. And we're going to let them know we got a chip in the game. If everybody starts doing it, guess what? She ain't going to get that money because there is no money to give. So that's what I'm telling everybody. Give your money, and because that woman wants to try us and say, we don't give money, let's give triple. But let's hold the dollars back. And I'll say to my brother, hey, that does the art, I totally respect what you're saying. But you know what, though? I want everybody to show, because I want them people to see our face. I want them to know that we will not accept this. I want her, when she walks down that campus, and I'm not saying call out her name. I don't call nobody that name. But I want her to know that she's not welcome here. I want her to feel uncomfortable, because she needs to know that we are not playing this game. So I will be at every home game, and if I see it, I'll turn my back. I will support those students on that campus. I will support that football team. I will support that band. And FAMU 88 is going to raise $500,000 in the next 5 years, and we're going to let her know she won't get a dime of it. That's it, man. That's all I got.
Appreciate it, Ms. Campbell. Listen, I'm gonna say this, and I gotta go. I got a meeting in a little bit, but let me say this. I think I would treat the president like the NFL treats Commissioner Goodell. Every time he comes on any platform or stage, he gets booed. It just is what it is. He gets booed. And again, if I was a student at FAMU, I would boo her. Or I would get newspaper. I would make a concerted effort. Anytime she speaks, if she was speaking at a football game, all the student section would have newspapers, and we'll put the newspapers up. Like, I would do everything possible in my power that would not get me kicked out of school to make it the worst possible time in the world for that president. Straight up. Every time she came, every time she spoke, I'm booing. Boo, 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 boo. She at the NAA events. We not clapping, we not cheering, we not doing none of that. She going on a whatever fundraiser research. I don't give a damn where listen. I'm gonna make it it's crickets every time you step on stage. It's crickets. But again, you gotta do what you gotta do, and still work the stuff that you do in the background, right? Find out what Michael White is doing. Make it uncomfortable. Find out what does that girl Figures even look like, bro? I swear to God, she's never showed her face at a FAMU board meeting ever. And make everybody else uncomfortable as well, man. But listen, prayers go out to FAMU. Prayers go out to the alums. Listen, I'm so serious, man. At the end of the day, you know what? I think Kanye West said it. The prettiest people do the ugliest things. The prettiest people do the ugliest things, right? At the end of the day, any FAMU alum that has Harper's number, y'all really need, like, sometimes people just need to know that you're appreciated. And I think everybody should, if you know Harper, I know her husband has a Facebook page or whatever, send your congratulations. Tell her you appreciate her efforts, because at the end of the day, she is fighting an uphill battle and she's putting on for FAMU. So the least y'all Bamas can do, I got 379 Bamas on here, right? If you're a FAMU alum, probably about 100, 200 FAMU alums, probably some other ones. If you have a way to get in contact with Kristen Harper, just say thank you. We appreciate you. Send her a $10 gift card. Send her a Cash App, whatever. Because at the end of the day, she is fighting an uphill battle that she's doing it masterfully in the most political, PC way possible. I mean, nice, nasty, just straight nice, nasty. All right. So give her kudos for that. All right. Figures is the enemy. Figures is attorney. I don't give a damn. I don't care. She the enemy today. And listen, until next time, you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to holler. God bless.